Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are strapping in for what looks like the logistical Everest of the sporting world.
That's putting it mildly.
Yeah, the 2026 FIFA World Cup.
Oh.
It's not just a sports event, is it? It feels more like a geographic marathon.
Absolutely. We are diving deep today into, well, the unprecedented scale of this thing. It's colossal. Hosted across 3 entire nations, the U.S., Canada, Mexico.
3 huge countries.
Exactly. It's chaotic by design, you could say, massive in scope. And look, for any serious football fan, it feels utterly essential, doesn't it?
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
So our mission today, really aimed at you, the listener, is to try and move past the glossy brochures and the hype.
Get down to brass tacks.
Right. Extract the hard facts, the budget figures, maybe some survival strategies you'll need to answer that one massive question hanging over it all.
A big one.
Is traveling to this colossal tri-nation tournament really worth the, frankly, immense logistical hassle and the financial investment?
We're calling it the $6,100 question. That's the figure we've landed on as a baseline. So we're going to break down the sheer thrill, the dream of it all.
Gotta have the dream.
But then we'll crunch a very detailed, I'd say conservative, budget based on real-world estimates, inflation, all that.
Okay.
And crucially, show you exactly how you might maximize the value of your experience, way beyond just the 90 minutes of football on the pitch.
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack this potentially overwhelming reality. Right, let's start by setting the stage for 2026, because we have to acknowledge the scale first. It's just the difference between this and, say, Qatar in 2022.
Oh, it's monumental. Night and day, really.
Yeah.
It truly is unprecedented. I mean, for the first time ever, we're looking at 48 teams competing.
That's from 32.
Up from the traditional 32. And that expanded format, it drastically increases the number of matches from 64 up to 104.
Wow, 104 matches.
Which automatically puts a huge strain on every available resource. Think about it, flights, accommodation, stadium infrastructure.
Across an entire continent, basically.
Pretty much. We are talking about using 16 host cities spread across 3 of the largest countries in North America.
You're spanning time zones, climates.
Everything. The venues stretch from, the cool beauty of Vancouver out west.
Right.
Down through the historic heat of Mexico City in the south, and then all the way over to these dense urban hubs like Boston and Toronto in the east. It's an overwhelming prospect for anyone planning a trip.
It really is.
And what's fascinating, I think, is that this sheer scale immediately highlights the core conflict for any fan thinking about going.
The dream versus the reality.
Exactly. On one side, you've got the dream. This is the peak global festival, right? The single most powerful sporting event on the planet, maybe a life-defining experience.
The thing you tell your grandkids about.
Yeah. But then on the other side, you have the brutal, complex reality of just trying to travel across this immense expanse in, maybe 2 or 3 weeks?
Okay, so let's indulge the dream side for just a moment, because that's the pull, isn't it? That's the emotional currency that makes us even contemplate spending what might be a year's savings.
Oh, absolutely. And the World Cup atmosphere is singular. It really does transcend sport. It becomes this true global festival.
A melting pot.
That description is spot on. The sources we looked at consistently emphasize that cultural melting pot aspect. For that 1 month, the streets of the host cities, they basically become unified, like a temporary, harmonious global society, all focused on one shared passion.
You're just immersed in it.
Totally. Immersed in this atmosphere of goodwill, excitement, and just sheer celebratory noise. It's infectious.
It's where, culture clashes become cultural fusion. I always think back to that anecdote from Brazil 2014.
Oh, yeah.
Seeing those Dutch fans, in their bright orange, trading scarves and singing songs with Japanese fans in their blue kits right there on Copacabana Beach. That kind of spontaneous, joyous interaction where all the usual divisions just seem to melt away for a bit. That's the World Cup experience, isn't it?
And that unity, that feeling, provides the fans true personal value. It's the intangible return on your investment, if you like.
Right.
You're not just buying a match ticket. You're sort of buying a piece of history. It's about being part of that backdrop, being able to tell your grandkids, I was there. I saw that unbelievable free kick, or I saw that legend score live.
That memory. Yeah, you can't put a price on that.
Exactly. Priceless.
Okay. Let's pause the romance for a second. We agree it's amazing. But what's the absolute worst part about planning this? Let's hit the logistical and financial reality check head on. This is what I call the migraine stage of planning.
The migraine definitely begins with the wallet, no question. The World Cup is notoriously expensive, we all know that. But the sheer geographic spread of 2026, it just magnifies those costs exponentially. Tickets, flights, accommodation, they'll all operate at a massive World Cup premium, way, way beyond standard North American summer rates.
And then there's what you called the critical distance problem.
Yeah.
This feels huge for 2026. Unlike previous tournaments you mentioned, Qatar, basically one city, or even Russia, where you could maybe manage some fast trains between places.
Right, much more clustered.
Here, we're dealing with potentially intercontinental domestic travel.
Precisely. The travel required within the tournament itself is immense. It just eats up both your time and your money.
Give us those examples again.
Okay, look at the specifics. Flying from Vancouver, Canada, way out on the Pacific coast, all the way down to Mexico City. That's over 6 hours of flight time.
Wow.
That's basically an international journey, even though it's technically within the host region.
And even within the U.S.
Same deal. Boston on the East Coast to Los Angeles on the West Coast, another 6-hour flight, maybe more with layovers. So if you're trying to follow your team across the group stage, maybe they play in 3 different corners in the map.
You could lose days just traveling.
Easily. 2 or 3 full days just spent in airports or on planes. Time that's completely lost for sightseeing, resting, soaking up the atmosphere.
And time spent traveling is money spent. On flights, maybe extra hotel nights if there are delays.
Which brings us to the paperwork, the administrative headache.
Yeah, this is a major complication, really unique to this Tri-Nation format. Fans need to be on this like yesterday.
Okay.
Depending entirely on your passport, where you're coming from, you might need separate travel documents, different border permissions, maybe even full visas for all 3 nations, the U.S., Canada, and Mexico.
Wow. 3 sets of rules.
3 separate international application processes, each with different processing times, different requirements, different fees probably. It's a significant, complex burden. You need serious foresight and early action on that. Okay, and finally, let's talk about the emotional risk. The gamble, really.
Right.
You've somehow navigated the visas, you scraped together the $6,100, you're exhausted from the flights,
Yeah.
only to see your team, the whole reason you came, crash out after 2 games in the group stage.
That is the crucial caveat, isn't it? The fan must be completely prepared to enjoy the trip regardless of what happens on the pitch.
Your team's success can't be the only goal.
Exactly. If the entire $6,100 value hinges solely on your team making the round of 16, well, you're taking a massive emotional gamble. The real value, the sustainable value, has to be found in the travel, the culture, the atmosphere around the games, not just the results.
Okay, that sets the stage perfectly.
Yeah.
We've accepted the emotional pull. It's a dream, potentially. Now, let's talk brass tacks. Where does that dream start hitting the budget ceiling? We need a hard number on the conservative financial reality.
Right. Let's walk through the $6,100 budget breakdown. And remember, this is based on a pretty conservative 2-week trip for one person, designed to catch, say, 3 group stage matches.
No.
We used a long-haul traveler baseline, maybe someone coming from Southeast Asia, like Ho Chi Minh City, because that helps establish a realistic high-end cost for the international travel part.
And this is the bare minimum, right? Not exactly luxury travel.
Definitely not. This is the floor, not the comfort zone. So first things first, the cost of entry. Match tickets, what are we really budgeting here? Official prices aren't even out yet from FIFA.
Tricky.
It is. But based on Qatar 2022's pricing structure, and then factoring in, a couple of years of inflation, we have to conservatively budget somewhere between $150 and $250 per group stage ticket.
And that's for the cheapest seats.
That's for the cheapest available category, yeah. Category 3, maybe Category 4, nosebleeds sometimes. So if you plan to attend 3 games, that puts you at $600 USD minimum.
Okay, $600. But that's if you get lucky.
That is the huge if. That price is only possible if you are successful in the official FIFA ticket lottery when it opens.
And if you're not.
Yeah.
If you miss out or wait too long. We need to be blunt about the resale market, don't we?
Absolutely blunt. Let's call it the secondary market, maybe the black market.
Yeah.
It's ruthless for World Cup tickets.
Yeah.
If you miss that official lottery window, or if demand just surges, which, let's be honest, you'll be forced onto these secondary platforms where demand outstrips supply tenfold, maybe more.
So that's $600.
First sources are really clear on this. That cost could easily double, maybe triple. pushing your ticket budget alone up to $1,200 USD or even more.
Just for 3 basic group games.
Just for 3 group games. And that's not even mentioning the risk of fraud with, unverified digital tickets being transferred. It's a minefield. This is the first place our $6,100 budget is incredibly vulnerable.
Okay, point taken. Next up, the travel itself. International flight and the intercity flights. That first flight just to get to North America, that's got to be the single biggest cost, right?
Most certainly. Using our baseline example again, Ho Chi Minh City, to a major U.S. hub, say LA, New York, Dallas, maybe you can find a decent price in the off-season.
But this isn't the off-season.
Exactly. The World Cup happens during peak summer months in North America. Demand is concentrated. Airlines know this. Prices surge. We must budget a conservative $2,000 USD for that return international flight.
$2,000, wow.
And that number has to account for high season pricing, probably multiple connections, and the fact that you have almost zero flexibility booking travel during a massive global event like this. Being flexible usually saves money, but here, rigidity is almost required and it costs more.
Okay, $2,000 for the main flight. Then there's the internal travel. Hopping between those 3 games you've got tickets for. Potentially crossing borders between the U.S., Canada, Mexico.
Right. We've tentatively set aside $400 USD for that intercity travel piece. But this is where that regional clustering strategy we mentioned becomes not just like a nice idea, but absolutely essential.
You blow this budget item without clustering.
Completely destroy it. For instance, a bus between 2 relatively close host cities like New York and Philadelphia, that's cheap, it's efficient, maybe $40 round trip, something like that.
Manageable.
Totally. But if your chosen games force a jump from, say, Philadelphia across the border up to Toronto, Canada, that cross-border flight, booked during peak World Cup season, could easily cost you $250 or more, just for one way.
So the $400 budget only works with minimal flights.
Minimal flights, maximum ground transport buses, maybe trains were feasible, prioritizing proximity.
And if a fan ignored that advice, if they booked, say, New York, then flew to Dallas, then flew to LA for their 3 games.
That $400 budget for internal travel, it probably becomes $1,500 overnight, easily.
Ouch.
Yeah, and that doesn't even account for the lost time. Every unnecessary flight adds a travel day, airport hassle, security lines, and multiple busy North American hubs. You just have to treat that internal travel budget with the same seriousness as the big international flight.
Okay, makes sense. Now the stay itself, accommodation and daily expenses. We're budgeting for 14 days, 2 weeks. This is where North America, especially the big cities, can be mercilessly expensive, can it?
Oh, this is a huge chunk of the budget. And yes, merciless is a good word. In the major host cities, New York, Toronto, LA, Vancouver, accommodation prices will be astronomical. Hotels will capitalize on guaranteed demand.
So even budget options.
Even budget options will be heavily inflated. And your standard budget traveler go-tos, like hostels, they'll either be booked solid months, maybe years in advance, or they'll be charging premium rates that are closer to what you'd expect from a mid-range hotel normally.
But what's our rock bottom, absolutely conservative estimate for just having a bed for 14 nights?
We really have to estimate $150 USD a night. And that's for a clean, basic, maybe slightly out-of-the-way budget hotel or an Airbnb room. On the absolute conservative end.
So $150 times 14 days.
That brings our accommodation total for the 2 weeks to $2,100 USD. And again, that assumes you're booking way in advance, maybe grabbing refundable options as soon as they appear, and potentially staying outside the absolute city center, relying on public transport to get to stadiums or fan zones.
Okay, $2,100 for accommodation. Now, the daily sending, food, local transport, maybe the souvenir.
Yeah.
You've budgeted $70 a day. Wait a minute, $70 a day in New York City or Los Angeles during a global event. That sounds wildly optimistic.
It's tight. It's really tight.
We're talking instant ramen and tap water here? How do you actually survive on $70 a day in these places without starving? I'm skeptical.
That's a fair challenge, definitely, and it requires major discipline. North America is generally expensive for daily stuff, but we budgeted that tight but hopefully manageable $70 USD a day for food, local transport, and maybe tiny incidentals.
Okay.
Over 14 days, that's $980. So we rounded it up to an even $1,000 USD for the 2 weeks of daily expenses.
And hitting that number requires...
It's non-negotiable for hitting the $6,100 total. It requires actively prioritizing cheap local eats. Think food trucks, family-run takeout joints, maybe hitting a supermarket for breakfast stuff. Absolutely minimizing sit-down restaurant meals, definitely minimizing minimizing alcohol, which is pricey. It is possible, but you have to be a strategic, almost ruthless shopper and eater.
So the $6,100 traveler is basically cooking in their Airbnb sometimes, using the street food scene religiously. Definitely not fine dining.
Pretty much, which arguably forces a more authentic cultural engagement anyway. You eat where the locals eat cheap.
True. Enhances the trip in a different way.
But yes, discipline is absolutely key for that $70 a day and no wiggle room.
Okay, let's tally this all up then to get to that magic number. Remind us of the components.
Right. So, tickets, best case scenario, $600. International flights, conservative, $2,000. Accommodation, basic, $2,100. Internal travel, heavily clustered, $400. Daily spending, super tight, $1,000.
And the grand total.
That brings our conservative, budget-focused grand total to exactly $6,100 USD.
Wow.
And remember, folks, this is the minimum threshold we calculated for one person, traveling from a potentially high-cost origin point for just 3 group stage games.
This isn't the budget if your team makes a deep run into the knockouts.
Not even close. This is just the entry fee, essentially.
So what's the fundamental insight here? What does that number, $6,100, really tell the listener about the gravity of this decision?
It tells you this isn't just a holiday. It's a significant, potentially life-altering financial commitment. It forces a really powerful trade-off analysis in your head. Meaning, for that same $6,100, what else could you do? You could take maybe 3 separate 2-week holidays to amazing places in Southeast Asia, or have a really high-end luxury week somewhere in Europe, or spend 2 weeks skiing in Japan.
Right.
When you stack the World Cup against those other potential uses for that capital, that intangible value, we talked about the atmosphere, the shared experience, it has to be incredibly high in your personal calculation to justify forfeiting those other potential trips. It really changes the nature of the investment, doesn't it?
That's the perfect pivot point. If we accept that $6,100 price tag, and look, many dedicated fans absolutely will save up and pay it, then you simply cannot afford to waste that investment.
Exactly.
The strategy has to shift. It can't just be about seeing a game. It has to be about making the entire trip worth it by structuring it as a grand, multi-layered travel experience.
This is where we move into optimization mode. Since the budget is so substantial, the goal must be to extract maximum value, cultural, culinary, geographical from that investment.
The football becomes the anchor.
Precisely. The football acts as the anchor for your itinerary, but it's the travel around those match days that really defines the overall success and value of the trip.
And the undisputed key to unlocking that value, as you mentioned, is the regional clustering strategy. This isn't just about saving money, is it? It sounds like it's also about saving your sanity.
Oh, it's absolutely essential for survival, both financial and mental. The strategy is simple. You have to reject that temptation to chase your team or random good games all across the continent.
Don't zigzag.
Don't zigzag. Instead, structure your itinerary around getting to know one specific geographical region really well.
And the benefits are?
Huge. It cuts down massively on those high internal flight costs. It minimizes airport time and delays. It reduces the potential paperwork hassle of crossing borders multiple times. And crucially, it allows you to use cheaper, often more relaxed ground transportation like buses or trains. Plus, it actually gives you time to breathe and appreciate where you are.
Okay, so let's give the listeners some concrete, actionable examples. Specific regional itineraries they could build a trip around, focusing on maximizing those off days beyond just, sitting in a fan park watching other games.
Right. Let's start out west. You could build a fantastic trip around the California road trip idea.
Classic.
Totally. Base yourself in either Los Angeles or maybe San Francisco, catch games in the stadiums nearby. Then your cultural activities between matches become iconic Californian experiences. Like driving a stretch of the Pacific Coast Highway that's a travel experience in itself. Visiting the immense natural beauty of Yosemite National Park for some hiking. Getting away from the city buzz. And of course, just fully exploring the incredible food scenes in LA and San Francisco. That trip becomes a quintessential Californian adventure, just anchored by World Cup matches.
That guarantees a massive cultural return on investment right there.
Okay, what about fans who maybe prefer cooler weather? Or a slightly less intense vibe than Southern California?
Then you head further north, up to the Pacific Northwest.
That's right.
Embrace the whole Cascadia region vibe.
Seattle, Vancouver.
Exactly. Base camp could be in Seattle, Washington, or across the border in Vancouver, British Columbia. Yeah. This itinerary often involves a relatively easy border crossing by road or train, much smoother than flying usually.
And the activities. The opportunities here lean heavily into nature in that distinct Pacific Northwest city culture, you're talking things like whale watching tours off the coast, serious hiking in stunning national parks like Rainier or Olympic near Seattle or near Vancouver, or just diving deep into the coffee culture, the craft breweries, the tech scene, that whole laid-back PNW vibe.
So you get nature, sport, unique city life. Nice combo.
Definitely.
And of course, we absolutely have to talk about Mexico. No deep dive on 2026 is complete without highlighting the immense cultural and historical significance there. This feels almost non-negotiable for a certain type of fan.
Oh, the Mexico cultural pilgrimage is a must-do for many. Just catching a game at the legendary Estadio Azteca in Mexico City, that's a pilgrimage for any serious football fan. It's like touching history.
It really is.
But the off-day activities must go beyond football. You absolutely have to explore the ancient, awe-inspiring pyramids at Teotihuacan, just outside the city.
Incredible place.
Dive headfirst into the overwhelming, complex, absolutely brilliant street food culture, which, by the way, is how you make that $70 a day budget actually work in Mexico City.
Good point.
And take the time to visit culturally rich institutions like the Frida Kahlo Museum, or just wander through historic neighborhoods like Coyoacán. This itinerary arguably provides the highest cultural density return per dollar spent. It's incredibly rich.
Man, that feels like three completely different, amazing holidays rolled into one World Cup experience using that clustering idea.
Yeah.
Are there other options, maybe for fans wanting a different slice of North America?
Yeah, definitely. For those maybe interested in, say, modern infrastructure, rapid growth, maybe a bit of cross-border flavor, there's the Texas Triangle trip.
Okay.
You could link games in Dallas and Houston, and then maybe do a quick hop down to Monterrey in Mexico, which is also a host city. This gives you a taste of both modern Texas, the space industry in Houston, the sheer growth in Dallas, and a bit of northern Mexican culture.
But caveat there.
Caveat is the distances within Texas are still substantial, even if it seems clustered on a map. You'll likely need flights or long drives there.
Right. Other option.
Or you could do the classic East Coast history tour. Focus entirely on those historic, highly walkable city centers. Boston, New York, and Philadelphia. All are host cities.
And the transport there.
That's the beauty. Here, you can largely rely on regional rail, like Amtrak, and buses between the cities. Much more relaxed, potentially cheaper, making that internal $400 travel budget much more feasible. You get history, culture, and relatively easy travel.
So by adopting this kind of strategic clustering, the whole trip transforms, doesn't it? It goes from being this logistical, expensive nightmare into a potentially structured, enriching, grand adventure.
That's the only way to do it, I think. It's the only way to genuinely make that $6,100 feel truly valuable beyond just the 90 minutes. Hashtag tag IVI, the voice of experience and final verdict.
Okay, that's the perfect transition. We've analyzed the dream, we've crunched the numbers, we've mapped out the strategy. Now let's bring in the voice of experience, someone who's actually navigated this kind of chaos repeatedly.
Yeah, let's synthesize this whole discussion and maybe validate the strategy with some wisdom from the trenches.
We wanted to share some insights from the superfan perspective. We drew on the deep experience of a traveler, let's call him Marco, who actually attended the last 3 World Cups. Brazil 2014, Russia 2018, and Qatar 2022.
Wow. He's the ultimate veteran of World Cup logistical nightmares then.
Pretty much. And his wisdom is so critical because he's seen the rising costs, he's dealt with the immense logistical challenges again and again, and his core finding is really straightforward.
Which is?
The trip is absolutely worth it.
The conditional if.
Exactly, if you go with the right mindset. And that mindset has to be detached from just expecting your team to win everything.
That echoes what we were saying earlier. The value isn't solely in the results.
Not at all.
So tell us about the true priceless value that Marco identified. Even when, presumably, his team faced early elimination sometimes, or when the logistics felt impossible. Was there a specific moment he shared?
Yeah, he described his experience in Russia, 2018.
Yeah.
The cities there were also quite spread out, often requiring long overnight train journeys.
Right.
And he recalls this one specific train ride. I think it was between Samara and Saransk. He said he was exhausted, stressed about sorting his next match ticket, just generally feeling the grind.
We've all been there on long trips.
Exactly. But he ended up spending about 8 hours sharing a cramped train compartment with a couple of fans from Peru and another from Australia. He said he didn't speak Spanish well, they didn't speak perfect English, but somehow they spent the whole night swapping photos of their families back home, sharing weird local snacks they'd bought, and attempting to sing terrible football anthems together.
That sounds amazing.
He said that was the defining moment of his entire Russia trip. not the actual match he was traveling to see. That human connection. So the true value is the human connection. The football is almost the excuse for it all to happen.
Precisely. Marco really emphasized that.
Yeah.
The football is ultimately the excuse for the gathering. The real event, the thing you remember years later, is the global community just coming together.
Wow.
He said he's made genuine, lasting friends now in Germany, South Korea, Nigeria, just from sharing a bench in a fan zone or splitting a spontaneous taxi ride after a game. That unifying, shared experience, the one that shows you people are fundamentally the same everywhere, regardless of language or culture, that's priceless. And you can't really replicate it anywhere else on that scale.
Okay, so based on those 3 prior experiences,
Yeah.
Brazil, Russia, Qatar,
Mhm.
what essential practical advice did Marco offer for someone attempting this 2026 trip, trying to balance that budget and the experience?
He boiled it down to 3 key operational pieces of advice, starting with preparation, naturally.
Number 1.
Number 1, plan early, like ridiculously early. As soon as FIFA confirms the final match schedule and which games are in which host cities, which is happening basically right now, book your accommodation immediately.
Even if plans might change.
Yes. Utilize refundable options if you have to, because prices for anything remotely near a stadium or decent transport links will only go up. Waiting pretty much guarantees you'll be priced out of that $150 a night budget we talked about. Book now, ask questions later.
Okay, plan early. What's number 2 regarding the schedule itself?
Number 2, be flexible. Don't overschedule your days down to the minute. The real magic, Marco stressed, happens in those spontaneous moments, like his train ride.
Leave room for serendipity.
Exactly. You need empty blocks of time to just wander through a host city, soak up the atmosphere in a free fan park, maybe accept that unexpected invitation to a barbecue from some fans you just met while queuing for coffee. If your schedule is rigid, booked solid from dawn till dusk, you will miss the best parts. Flexibility is key to the experience.
Makes sense. And finally, number 3, regarding managing the money day to day. How does the veteran advice align with our, frankly, very tight $70 a day estimate?
It aligns perfectly. His third piece of advice is all about saving money strategically. Marco insisted travelers must embrace the local culture for food.
Back to the food trucks.
Back to the food trucks. Sick the fancy, overpriced stadium restaurants. Avoid the obvious tourist traps near attractions. Instead, actively seek out the local food trucks, the little street vendors, the family-run takeout places. That's where you find authenticity, and crucially, that's how you make $70 a day actually work.
And transport.
And most critically, use public transport.
Okay.
He called it your absolute best friend in any World Cup host city. It saves you huge amounts compared to ride shares or taxis, especially right after games when demand surges, traffic jams, and you see those astronomical surge prices kick in. Public transport is the way.
Okay, solid advice. So after this whole deep dive, the logistics, the $6,100 budget reality check, the clustering strategy, the veteran's perspective, where do we finally land on the calculation? Is the answer to the big $6,100 question a definitive yes? Is it worth it?
It's just not a simple yes or no, is it? It really has to be a highly conditional yes if.
Okay, break down the ifs.
The conditions are explicit, based on everything we've discussed. First, it's worth it if you can genuinely afford it without putting yourself into serious financial jeopardy. That $6,100, or likely more, needs to be money you can realistically set aside now, not hope to find later.
Financial stability first.
Absolutely. Second, and just as important, it's worth it if you fully embrace the entire travel and cultural experience. That means using the clustering strategy, seeking out those spontaneous human connections Marco talked about, being flexible, rather than focusing purely on the 90 minutes of your team's matches or their results.
The journey, not just the destination games.
Precisely. If those conditions are met, then yes, the experience seems potentially worth the cost.
All right. What's the final emotional pitch then? For the listener who's still on the fence, weighing that $6,100 against other holidays, other life goals.
Marco actually provided the perfect closing statement on this based on his lifetime of travel, not just World Cups. He said, "You will always regret the trips you didn't take more than the money you spent."
Powerful.
Yeah. He framed this trip, this kind of trip, as an investment in life experience, a chance to be part of a unique moment of global history. This Tri-Nation format won't be replicated exactly like this anytime soon. It's a moment of shared humanity that you can literally buy into if you choose to. #TAG outro, and final thought.
Okay, that really covers the dream, the harsh reality of the money, and the crucial strategy needed. So for you, the listener, the action steps seem pretty clear now.
Yeah, get saving.
Start saving now, absolutely. Dedicate serious time to researching those regional clusters. Really look at the cities. What interests you beyond just the football schedule? Get your documents sorted. Check those visa requirements now.
And apply for tickets in the official FIFA lottery the second it opens. Avoid those reseller prices at all costs.
Crucial. Okay, let's wrap up. What's the final provocative thought you want to leave our listeners mulling over?
Well, we've established the World Cup, particularly one on this unprecedented gargantuan scale across 3 massive nations, is probably the ultimate expression of global community, of temporary unification, right?
Yeah, arguably.
And we've established the conservative trip cost is at least $6,100 US, likely more for many. So the question to leave you with is this. In a world that, let's face it, often feels pretty fractured, divided, maybe even chaotic, is the intangible value of participating in that shared, unified global experience, that profound sense of momentary, harmonious humanity, is that feeling worth the significant financial cost?
Worth $6,100 or more.
Exactly. It's a question only you, the listener, can really answer for yourself, based on your own priorities and values.
A very good question to ponder. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the challenge and the opportunity of the 2026 World Cup. We really hope this breakdown helps you start the planning for your own potential grand adventure.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Keep researching, keep planning, and maybe start dreaming about the connections you might make in 2026.